everyone. I know this is lunchtime, but thank you for taking the time and coming here. My name is Sunitha Muthukrishna. I'm a PM on the Fabric App Dev team. And this is Chris. He'll introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I'm also on the Fabric App Dev team.
All right. So today, I'm hoping most of you guys attended the keynote and you probably saw the Rayfin being brought up. So today we'll be kind of demoing you a little bit more about that. Before we go into the details, let's go ahead to what the agenda looks like. I'll just give you a quick introduction of what Rayfin is and go through the demo. But all of you probably have been building applications, maybe vibe coding and stuff for a while. So have you guys seen this issue where your org is telling you, I need you to build more stuff, be more productive and stuff like that, but then when you actually build those applications with some of your production, like your production data or your production resources that you want to work with, it becomes pretty complex to actually end-to-end figure out how you're going to build the app, right? So this is where Rayfin comes into picture. And with Rayfin, you have a code-first SDK that makes it a lot more easier for you to figure out or define your data models, your roles, your permissions on the data itself. And you get a CLI, which allows you to quickly do local development, deploy it to Fabric. All of that is streamlined through the CLI experience. Now, since you're deploying to Fabric, you also get the enterprise-grade security, governance, and all the different capabilities that Fabric has to offer. Now, without waiting for too much time, I'll get into the demo. It's 25 minutes. It's going to go pretty fast. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is just quickly create a simple application. You can run an npm create command. This will ask you a few questions about, do you want to start from a template? And you can quickly pick a template that you want to start with. We have a couple of ones to choose from. In this case, I'm just creating a simple Hello World application, which is a to-do application. It takes a while for it to set up all the dependencies and stuff because you're starting from a template. So a lot of the things is pre-baked into it. And the way we've built it in such a way is like the template has all the skills and stuff that you need to work with any coding agent. So when you're working with coding agent and Rayfin, it should be pretty seamless. It understands the context and can give you, build the application the way the SDK expects it to, right? Once the application is done, all you have to do is get into your actual project folder. All right. All right. And if you've seen the demo, you just do an up command. These are all the different options that you have. Now, at the back end, we are deploying a database. You have your static content. You have the auth service as well. So here, auth is Fabric single sign-on. So these are all the services that are baked in without you having to do any custom stuff to configure or set things up at this point. All right. Now, if you want to kind of go build a field operations app, like a building maintenance person has to go figure things out. So I can use Copilot to actually provide a prompt. And all it does is uses the prompt information to figure out, OK, how do I create an application where a dispatcher can assign or define jobs, and a technician can get those jobs assigned to him, and then execute on those jobs. So you have two different roles, and this single application handles both those roles and all the different tools and capabilities that are needed to complete the work.
Fast forward.
Yes. It finished pretty quickly. And now you can see there's a simple list of jobs that are already predefined. We have some canned data and stuff here, because deployment can take a few minutes. Now, there's a job called state check. I'll let Chris talk to some of these things here on how he wants to execute the job.
If you guys wouldn't mind just helping me, test the things out. Is the audience excited? Here we go. I'm gonna say that's a pass. And then how big is the audience? And I'm not gonna actually take the picture again because I lost the camera when I tried that. But go ahead and just give everybody else here a really nice, high selfie from me. There we go. Cool.
That was pretty neat, isn't it? Like quickly taking a picture. Imagine you're on site. You want to take pictures of the task that you're working on and upload them. Now, there's an issue that there's one of the job that doesn't make sense. It says GM. It's not very clear. So let's kind of ask Copilot to fix that, because there's no way in the app right now to actually edit my title. if I make a mistake. So all Chris is doing is providing some of the details. Okay, make sure that I can edit the title and give that capability to the application. Now, the Copilot has a lot of context on the CLI as well as SDK. So anything that you need to any action you want to take, you can just tell Copilot to deploy it to Fabric. It should deploy it to Fabric using our CLI. Now, this would require some database changes, you would assume, right? I'm trying to make sure that I can edit the thing. I might have to make sure that there's a CRUD operation that actually manages these details, right? So Rayfin SDK allows you to define the data models. It also gives you the capability with a data client. So you can perform all those operations as part of that. Chris is going to take a look into the actual data models. So here you can see these are all the data models that are defined in code. Typically, you would use T-SQL, set up all your database schema, figure out all the relationships. This is everything in TypeScript code. You define your data models, you define your relationship, everything in code. Let's take a look at the client services. And now any data application, there is CRUD operations, right? You have to do a create, select, read, write data, and stuff like that. So here you can see that there's a simple client capability in our SDK as well, which allows you to perform all those operations. I can update data, I can read from the data, I can query multiple rows, I can do a lot of the CRUD operations just through using the client, rather than having to write this from scratch, right? Did Copilot actually finish it, Chris?
Yeah, looks like actually finished 40 seconds ago.
Okay,
so
let's check it out if it actually worked.
Let's go ahead and just make sure that everything's actually installed in this work tree.
There you go.
And run dev, and then here is a.
So now you can run the application locally as well to test out your changes. So we're running this out locally. You can see there's a Docker compose, so because it's running on my local machine, Docker is set up. All of those things are set up in such a way so that I can evaluate if my changes are good before I actually push it to Fabric again. Now, under the hood, it's spinning up all the backend services. So it's actually spinning the database locally. It's spinning the Rayfin service locally as well. So once all of this is set up, it's up and running. And you should be able to sign in. And once you sign in, let's see if we can actually edit the title. Now, obviously, on your local machine, you're not going to have all the production data, right? So he's just going to test it out to see if things are working on your local machine. Once you deploy the changes, all you have to do is do a Rayfin up, and that should allow me to deploy my changes to the item that's already there in Fabric. All right. If anyone's familiar with Fabric, you have a workspace, so you can provide the information about which workspace you want to deploy it to, and then you can deploy it to that. This gives you a lot more control, as if I want to deploy it to a different workspace, you can do it as well.
It's the end of the day, so I'm pushing straight to prod.
Yes. Testing and prod is fun too sometimes. All right. It takes a minute, but it's actually, you can see some of the details that's coming out in the output. Is actually checking for the database changes, schema changes, what happened, should I apply some schema changes. It's also validating, okay, I need to deploy the static content. Right. Let's refresh the page and see if we can edit the task. There you go. So this was the whole development lifecycle of the app from beginning to finish. And since this is running in Fabric, imagine this is talking to your production data and stuff like that. So you can see how seamless it was. You didn't have to figure out how do I connect to a database. You didn't have to figure out how do I set up the auth service because it's using Fabric single sign-on. Now the application here, you can see it's on the browser, right? But you also have an embedded view. So think of imagining like internal applications, right? You want to view it within your Fabric portal, you can view it inside your Fabric portal as well. So you have the embedded view. You have all the properties and stuff to manage your application. Although your local development lifecycle is on VS Code. All right.
You want to try another feature?
Yes.
All right. Which one do you want to do?
Let's see. What can we do? What do you have in mind? I'm not sure. There's so many features coming to my mind right now.
What about the issue where I'm not sure if I actually am assigned this task or not?
That's nice. I didn't know who this is assigned to anyway, so I think let's do that. Let's go ahead and assign it to somebody and so we can view those details.
Okay. And then we're going to do one other cool trick, which is if I go back here and do pm run dev local all over again.
Sometimes when you have too much fun with tools, you want to build so many things.
What's fun is that before this GitHub Copilot desktop app, this demo ran a little bit longer, so we usually have a couple of extra bugs to go shoot out, so it was nice. So I'm getting my local dev environment up and running again, just talking to myself, and we're going to go and try out.
So you guys have seen the demo with the GitHub Copilot app on the keynote. That's exactly what he's using here. It gives you a lot of the capabilities like one-stop shop for everything to actually manage the whole life cycle. One good advantage of using like Rayfin with coding agents is because everything is code first. It has a lot of context and understands, and they do a pretty good job to stay within the boundaries defined by the SDK. So if you say these are the rules, these are my boundaries, play within this context, it's comfortable enough to understand that and is able to work within that. So you can reimagine any kind of application. Could be a line of business app, it could be a customer-facing app, but there's a lot of potential based on what you want to build. All right. Now let's see if this new feature is
done. Didn't reset the config properly. Let's try one more time. Live demo.
All right. While this is spinning, do you guys actually build apps and stuff? For how many of you raise your hand if you build apps as a full-time job? And for fun, too, that's included. All right. You did notice that there was a username password there. That's for local testing. So this way you have like your Fabric single sign-on once you're in production, but you have local testing for like username and password. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility to play with like test data versus your production data. All right, let's just ask Copilot again to see who's assigned.
And I'm able to use this cool pick and polish feature here, so I can go ahead and actually select the item that I'm talking about rather than trying to refer to it vaguely.
All right. It's going to run through a few of the checks in terms of like figuring out how it's going to build this thing. But so far what I've shown you is a simple and easy way, leverage coding agents, leverage the Rayfin SDK, build your end-to-end applications. Do all of you use Fabric as well? Yes? Okay. Have you used it only for data so far? How many of you guys are going to try this out? Awesome.
and then it wants me to sign back in again.
Yes. All right, now let's see. Time to test things out.
Oh, it's still trying.
It still hasn't worked?
What's interesting there is that it recognized that it wasn't showing up in the UI, so it's going in and trying another thing, which is it's nice when you've got the kind of embedded view here with the GitHub Copilot app, because it can actually go and manipulate the UI for you. You don't need to stand up, Playwright or something like that as a separate tool. It can still go use Playwright, so if it needs to open up an external browser to do that, it can still do those things. But it's really nice having it just kind of right here inside of the editor itself. Now it's adding the assigned drop down, so let's give that a shot.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There you go.
And you can see this one actually wasn't assigned to myself, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that now. And if I go back to this, let's see, did it work?
Yep. So we've added a couple of features already in this really short time. Now this is a pretty easy way to kind of keep on iterating till you get the kind of application that you're thinking of building. And you didn't have to really spend a lot of time trying to understand the details or the logistics of all the things that actually it takes to actually build an application today. And again, if you want to deploy it, you can deploy it to Fabric and you kind of iterate the whole loop. This is kind of your development lifecycle loop at this point. Anyone has any questions, maybe just raise your hand, let me know. Any questions? GraphQL? I think GraphQL is just an API at this point, right? GraphQL, you use it for data access to pull information that you want to across multiple sources. Sorry? Yes, you can write data back as well, but this is using GraphQL under the hood for all the CRUD operations, so it's not like a different thing. But you're building an application sometimes, right? You're thinking of an end-to-end solution that you're trying to build. So for the end-to-end solution, you have different pieces and components you want to work with. GraphQL might be one component, but maybe I want to work with a SQL database. Maybe I want to have the auth service with Fabric sign-on. If you want to do custom stuff for that, it takes a while to build those things. So you're getting a lot of it out of the box. So when I share my application with you, if you have the right permissions, you can log in. You don't have the right permissions, you can't log in. So there are a lot of benefits because you're getting the whole package, your hosting, your backend, plus auth, all of that in one product. I'll iterate her question. She was asking, can we deploy it to a capacity? So it's an item inside of Fabric. So if you're familiar with Fabric, Fabric has, you create a workspace, you can add an item to it. So this is just another item called app. You can go create the item inside any workspace you want, and whatever capacity it's attached to, that's the capacity that you get to work with the application. It's the same CU model. There's nothing different that you're going to see in terms of your billing and stuff like that. And all the services that come under the hood, which is the Fabric SQL database for database, and for the Rayfin service, the hosting. But you're only going to get charged for some of the child services there. That's it. And I want a certain set of users to be able to see it. So do I have to set up a security group and all that? If we publish to a tenant, then it's probably discoverable by everyone. Is that something that we... All right, because we have 5 minutes, maybe you want to show the slide on the resources for the next stuff.
Sure.
So I'll ask her question again, just so everyone hears. So she was asking how do I make it discoverable across my organization? So you have a share option because it's an item, the same Fabric permission model that you would see. So you can share it with anyone within your organization through the link. They can have access to the application. Because at the end of the day, it's an application. You have a URL for the app to access, but the user has to have explicit permissions of actually executing stuff, because under the hood, you're working with data. So you want to make sure that the right person on your team or organization has access to the data, so you don't want to give it to everyone else. So in the Fabric portal itself, you provide like, okay, these are the people who have access to run and interact with the applications. These are the people who have access to collaborate with me on the applications. You have all of those capabilities, but uses the same Fabric permission model. All right, we have 3 minutes left, and I do want to kind of let you guys know is, here's the documentation, and we have a GitHub repository. You want to go check out some of the stuff about the product. We have 4 labs that Chris is driving, along with a few folks from my team as well. So if you want to kind of give it a shot, try it, please come and join the labs and check it out. I'll be at the export booth today at 2:30. So you want to come and chat, find me there. Any other questions? We have a couple more minutes. I wanted to make sure if anyone has any other questions. Sorry. Sorry? I think there's a Fabric AI booth here. Yeah, here. Yeah. You have a question? Yes.
So I think it was the initial thing he did where it was to change the title. I noticed that he said, please update Fabric stuff or something as part of that prompt. Do you recall that?
I'll ask him.
I was curious what might fail if you didn't.
It doesn't need to, because I've tried it without providing all that context and it's worked for me. But I think I'll let everyone know before I talk to it. No. So when we were editing the feature, when we were adding the feature for editing the title, so I think there was some text about Fabric that was in the prompt. That was the question is, do I need to provide that Fabric context? I think the only time you need to provide the Fabric context is if you are deploying to Fabric. So if I'm telling the Copilot deploy to Fabric, I say deploy to Fabric. And because we have the CLI and the Copilot is aware of the CLI, it will just do a Rayfin up under the hood. Now, it should have the context information, okay, which workspace do I deploy it to, and things like that. So if it doesn't have the context, it'll probably ask you. But that's the only time you call out Fabric is, hey, now I think the app's kind of ready. Let me push it to Fabric. That's the only time. But development time, you don't really need to. You figure out what you want the app to look like, feel like, and you keep iterating on it. Anything you want to add, Chris? We have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, one last thing I'll show. It's mentioned there on the Rayfin repo pieces as well. But obviously, like all the other sessions that you'll see here, there's a accompanying GitHub repo that contains the source code that we kind of shared with today. But what's also cool is that template that we have that we use for the demo today is also checked into our awesome Rayfin repo. We're accepting community contributions for templates and other things that people think are cool here. So you can try out this demo yourself by following the instructions to install the Field Engineer demo. You see here there's a very simple npm create command where you basically just pass the template that you want it to use, and it will go ahead and automatically install that for you, all the things that you saw it initially doing when we started out the demo. So if you've got new features for Field Technician, I'm always open to new features being added there. If you want to add a new template, by all means, please send a new template. And you can also use that same pattern as well by simply just passing any GitHub URL that has a Rayfin template in it. You can use that even for your own private template marketplaces inside of your company as well. So definitely recommend checking out those marketplace pieces. I will, when this gets done, check this into a branch for the demo thing. So it's been very interesting watching it work. It's been using the new Canvas stuff to actually go and invoke JavaScript in like the console on the Canvas page to go try to figure out what's going wrong with the state machine that's driving this thing. So very much definitely try out Rayfin, of course. Rayfin's great. Try out the new GitHub Copilot app if you haven't already tried that out, and then try using them together. It's a really great combination. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying around and watching us talk and demo.